The farm crisis was bearing down on rural America as 1985 unfolded. High interest rates, low commodity prices, mounting debt, and the fallout from the 1980 grain embargo continued to put pressure on farmers.
That our national security depends just as much on how many farmers we've got as how many missiles we've got.
Sid Sprecher, the second executive producer of the program, was concerned the 1970s farm boom would lead to a collapse in the heartland.
It's kind of like one farmer described it as you're spinning a bucket of water and you're going faster and faster, and you don't know how you're going to put the bucket down. And then the bucket came down and everybody got wet.
I'm Sid Sprecher.
Thousands of foreclosures brought several century-old farming legacies to an end. There were farmers who just closed the door and walked away. Others committed suicide. Land prices plummeted, by some estimates up to 60%. One farmer murdered his banker. Sarah Frasher, a producer on the program, was one of several reporters on the market-to-market team that followed the 80s farm crisis.
I always felt a profound obligation to be accurate. And I say that word specifically because I don't think there's anything as such as truth. You give the facts and you let people try and figure out how they feel about them, come to their own truth.
Rock and roll musicians joined country music artists to raise money to help farmers retire their debt as part of the first Farm Aid concert.
Good morning to you.
By 1986, Chapter 12 was established in the Bankruptcy Code. It basically allowed farmers to keep their land, continue farming, and pay off their debts. But the struggle was far from over. Talk show host Phil Donahue, the nation's top talk show host of the time, touched on this topic as network media began to cover more of the crisis in rural America.
I don't want your damn charity. I don't want your subsidies. I want a price in the market.
As 1987 rolled around, we followed problems with the Immigration and Naturalization Service, now known as Immigration and Customs Enforcement, as they sorted out how to enforce the Immigration Reform Act of 1986. Confusion over the interpretation of the new law was preventing agricultural workers from crossing the border to pick fruit and vegetable crops that were in danger of rotting in the field. Donna Nicholson Svensson was part of the team in the 1980s covering the countryside from Maine to California.
We were on the vanguard, I thought, of a lot of stories, in particular, the agricultural policy, agricultural lifestyle stories. So we were doing stories that at the time were nobody else was really doing, and we were covering them at a very deep level.
Along with covering the Federation of Southern Cooperatives, Svensson reported on new cloning technology for the cattle industry. The drought of 1988 was leaning hard on farmers, with potential yield losses and the associated grain terminal backups caused by low river levels. We took a look at the satellite cattle auction business as we showed how bidders could be half a world away and look over what was up for sale from the comfort of their living rooms. Trade is something we have covered throughout our history. In this 1988 episode, we reported on expansion of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade that now included agriculture. Ringing in 1989 saw parts of rural America being rolled over by an expanding drought. Kansas wheat farmers were particularly hard hit as parts of the region received only 50% of the average annual rainfall. One of our first interviews with Temple Grandin took place in 1990. We were able to find out a little bit more behind Grandin's compassion for animals that motivated her to design better ways to move them through feedlots and packing plants.
I think it's very, very important that we treat them humanely. We're going to shorten their life a bit, but while they're here on this earth, we want to give them a really good life.
As the year closed, we continued with our exploration of how small communities were working to solve the perpetual problem of bringing doctors to rural America.
Hello, I'm Chet Randolph.
In 1991, after nearly 16 years in the host chair, Chet Randolph retired. His replacement was veteran farm reporter Mark Pearson. Over the preceding 12 months, Pearson had been appearing frequently. At Chet's request, the switch was made quietly from one host to another without any fanfare. We explored the concept of urban sprawl with a look at outlet malls being planted on farmland.
Your total's $36.30.
After reporting on the 1989 launch of the advertising campaign Pork, the Other White Meat, we took time in 1992 to see if the money being sent to the National Pork Producers Council from the pork checkoff was meeting the needs of producers. As 1993 dawned, we were looking at the controversial use of BST, a growth hormone used to increase the output of dairy cattle. It was also the year of devastating Midwestern floods that paralyzed Des Moines, the capital city of Iowa. The major metropolitan area received a knockout blow when its water treatment plant was covered by floodwaters. In 1994, we took a closer look at who had rights to the scarce resource of water in California. A North Carolina hog lagoon ruptured in June of 1995, sending 25 million gallons of hog manure into tributaries of the nearby New River. The resulting fish kill was one of the opening shots in what became a long fight between North Carolina hog producers and a large number of the Tar Heel state's citizens. By August, Congress was debating the 1995 Farm Bill. What was dubbed the Freedom to Farm Law called for the end to farm subsidy programs by 2002. Critics of the landmark legislation dubbed it Freedom to Fail. Wrangling over the bill delayed its passage until 1996. And we continued to analyze the markets with the likes of Walt Hackney, Doug Jackson, and Virgil Robinson. John Roach was often seen across the second decade of the program. This was also the decade where Sue Martin began her tenure as the first woman to join the analysis crew.
Maybe 650 is not out of line.
For Market to Market, I'm David Miller.